Nelson, we're live.
Hey, Daniel. Thanks for having me.
No problem. Let's begin with this, Nelson. How does it feel to be the only 60-year-old I know that is in better shape than me?
Yeah, right. I'm not. I look good, but I look good on paper and I look good, but inside I'm a mess. I'm a hollow shell.
Well, we can dive deep into the internal things that are Nelson, but let's start way back. Let's start with your birthplace, because I know your story, or at least I know some of your story, some of the main parts that have been told over time. But for the audience listening, let's start from scratch. Let's talk about where you were born and just take us through your journey as to where you are now, because it's pretty clear that your story is a special one.
Well, thank you. Well, I'm from Venezuela. That's what the accent comes from. Venezuela, South America, north of South America by Colombia, by the Caribbean. And I'm 60. I was born in Maracaibo, the second largest city, oil town, like Houston, where I live now. Came to the States in '84, so I've been here forever. Went to school in Canada, got a degree as a chemical engineer in McGill in Montreal, and ended up here in Houston, Texas, working as an engineer for a while. And then found out I was in 1986, found out I was HIV positive, and in the worst time to be told that, because there was no treatments and no hope. So that changed me forever. So the fact is that it changed my entire life. It changed what I do now as my mission. It changed my perspective, and it started a path where basically, 37 years later, I'm here doing this kind of work. It has nothing to do with chemical engineering. So
Yeah.
just brief. I don't want to talk too much because I tend to go overboard when I talk. So
No, I'd like to dive deep into that, because I mean, 1986, for those that are unaware, this was the AIDS epidemic at this time.
yeah, the HIV test had just been discovered or created in '85, and the first cases of HIV were reported in Los Angeles in '81, '82. So it was the beginning of what we're still in the epidemic. It was the beginning of this horrible thing that killed a lot of people, still killing over 1 million people a year all over the world. But yeah, it was. I came to the States in '84, so 2 years later, I find out that my dreams of, as an immigrant in the United States had probably been shattered by an early death, and I was also in my mid-20s. So that was shocking. But I think, like many people that have successful stories to tell, that horrible challenge. I mean, I was 100% sure I wasn't going to live. If I was lucky, 10 more years. And when you have very little time and nothing to lose, you tend to focus on what's important in life. So I decided that I was no longer going to be a chemical engineer for an oil company like Shell. And I became obsessed with preventing HIV wasting syndrome. Wasting syndrome, as the name implies, is a loss of weight, involuntary weight loss over the baseline of 10% or so. So most people with HIV died in bones, like concentration camp victims. And most of my friends, and I had a partner that was also wasting already, and I refused. I just became obsessed. I refused to be one of those that died in bones. So I became obsessed with the bodybuilding world and all the science behind not only testosterone, but nandrolone and anabolic steroids they're actually approved by the FDA. Three of them here in the States. I became obsessed. And remember this, because you're a youngster. Back then we had no internet. So anytime you wanted to research something, you had to go to a library. So that was a painful and long process. But yeah, it became my obsession. I created a program called Power, or Program for Wellness Restoration. I opened a nonprofit organization, and I started preaching to doctors that, hey, we needed to prescribe these hormones for people that are wasting to save them. Because, like in my case, I was already losing weight. I was down to 140. I'm at 200 pounds. I know I'm a little bigger than I should be, but I was able to put on 30 pounds in a matter of 2 months. Because when you're wasting away, your body's just your response to hormones is intensified. So a lot of doctors started prescribing my program, even though it was surrounded by the stigma of steroids, even in the 90s, in the late 80s. But most doctors realized that people were living longer, so it became a thing. It became a big thing in HIV, and I have to say, when I die eventually, I think I'll be known for that, because I really think I was able to change, at least when it comes to wasting, change the life expectancy of people around me. It was not a cure, obviously, to put on weight and lean body mass. But it definitely bought us time until the new drugs in 2006, I'm sorry, 1996, 97 came in. So I'm 100% sure I would not be here if it wasn't for the fact that I started doing testosterone, nandrolone, then we had oxandrolone, and put on 5 pounds to prevent my wasting away and die like everybody else I knew.
Wow. So if I can get this straight, when you were diagnosed with HIV, it was essentially a death wish, 10 years or less in many cases, correct?
Yeah.
And you were obviously given that prognosis by your doctor, and then you said to yourself, no, I'm not accepting this. I'm going to figure out an answer. How did you figure out that anabolic steroids were what you needed to increase your life expectancy?
Well, it was pretty obvious. I was lucky. I was lucky to be in the right time in the right place. Things sometimes in life happen that way. Uh, there is luck, obviously, and there is intelligence, and there is other things, other factors. Right? Luck is a big factor, and I was transferred to Los Angeles. It's a mecca of bodybuilding. In their in the late 80s. I was working there for Shell, and then I was freaking out because obviously I was horrified. I was in the closet, not only about being gay, but HIV at work, because obviously back then they would fire you. They would actually, it was horrible. So I started reaching out and going to meetings in Los Angeles, support groups, because we had nothing. We had no treatments. We only had weird stuff that we were doing. We're importing stuff from Mexico and from all over, different immunotherapies that we tried our best. But it wasn't until it just something clicked when I saw these two big guys, these muscle guys, coming to our meeting. Everybody else was skinny and wasting and scared, and these two handsome guys, they're all pumped up. And I saw them. I said, wait a minute, these guys are not wasting. So I went to talk to them during the break right away. I said, listen, I want to do what you guys are doing. I've lost 15 pounds already. I'm terrified. He says, well, we're doing steroids. And I said, well, I'm not going to do that. Steroids are bad for you. He says, you're going to die anyways, Nelson. What are you talking about? Who knows? Look, at least you won't look like you're dying. You're not going to be out of the closet at work, by wasting away. So right away, I was like, okay, I guess I'll try it. They were the ones. They saved my life. They eventually died, like 7 years later, both of different infections, because they were more advanced than I was. But they did. Those two angels saved my life. And that's it. Once I started, within the second week, I felt like this dark cloud was lifted. I was starting to feel energy again and sex drive again, and feeling and gaining weight. And people at work, they were telling me before this, you look tired. Are you sleeping enough? And every time they would ask me that, I said, oh shit, I'm already starting to look it. And for us, it was a horrifying experience to have the look. The look was being skinny, losing weight, and then obviously having these spots on your face that are called KS. It's another virus that attacks you. And I was horrified to be not only die, but also to get people were afraid of us, and also to be fired from an amazing job they were to find. So, anyways, put on 35 pounds, and I was 100% sure that I wanted this to become my mission in life. I wanted every doctor to know how to prescribe, how to treat and it wasn't too hard. It wasn't too hard. I created, a program in, on paper and started faxing it. Eventually, fax machines came through, and that's how I got the word out to all doctors. I found somehow somebody gave me a list of fax numbers from all over the country, and I went nuts. I went very OCD about it, and this my program ended up in every doctor's office with every doctor that treats HIV, and then I started hearing that doctors were impressed about how their patients were doing. So it was it was it was liberating. It gave us hope. I wrote a book called Built to Survive. That's the first book I wrote with Michael Mooney. Michael Mooney is another person I have to thank. Michael Mooney is not positive, HIV positive. He just really likes science and helping people, and he helped me write that book, Built to Survive. Somebody else was writing the book before us. Somebody else. His name was Dr. X. On Muscle Media 2000. There's a magazine back in the 90s, early 90s, that was amazing. It was probably the best magazine. There's no magazine like that anymore. They were not afraid. They were not afraid to discuss the science behind anabolics and clinical use, and they were not afraid. And this guy, this doctor with HIV, he didn't disclose his name because obviously stigma. He called himself Dr. X and wrote a column every month about anabolics and HIV. So I became obsessed with him and kind of reached out, and eventually he developed CMV retinitis, which is a virus that attacks your eyesight and makes you blind. And then he called me and said, I'm going blind, so I'm going to ship you everything I have on the subject on my book. And because I asked him if he needed help, and please finish the book for me. He had written like 20% of it, and I'm going to ship you everything I have because I'm basically killing myself tonight. I'm going to have a party with all my friends, and we're going to have champagne, and I'm going to go my own room, and I'm not going to go blind. There was a lot of pride. I mean, a lot of my friends died with that pride. So yeah, that was shocking. I was even talking about it makes me want to, because I knew when he said that, okay, this is it, Nelson. There's no way back. Your life has changed. You're going to finish a book. You're going to do this thing. And it took me 10 years of the work of actually lecturing, going everywhere on my own penny, and lecturing all over the country. About steroids and HIV. So, and nobody really opposed me. That was the best part. I was afraid that people and doctors were going to call the DEA on me or the government. Nobody really screwed. Nobody wanted to fuck around with us. That's for sure. Because we activists, HIV activists, AIDS activists are the worst type of activists when it comes to activism. You don't want to piss us off because we were blocking the streets, we were blocking traffic, we're chaining ourselves to Wall Street, and so they left me alone. So even talking about it is surreal because part of me is like kind of disconnected myself from the past because it's a very painful past.
Yeah.
But I'm very proud of that past. I just do not go there much, because really my life is so different now. and over 40 of my friends died, and most of them died before I could help them out, and some of them did put some weight on, but eventually their immune system was so depleted that there was no way to reverse that. So, but there's a happy ending, I guess, for many people did survive. I made it to 2006. I'm sorry, I keep saying 2006, 1996. 1997, where the first protease inhibitor came in. And then we stopped wasting. We didn't waste away, but we started building fat mass in weird places. The syndrome is called lipodystrophy syndrome. So we went from wasting syndrome, which is the loss of fat and muscle everywhere, to lipodystrophy syndrome, which is the gain of fat, not only in the belly area, but in the hump right here on the back of your neck, uh, on your neck. I mean, it was a horrible thing that some medications were causing. Even though we're living now longer, our virus was being controlled, we were getting disfigured. So the body changes in HIV have been dramatic, from one pendulum side to the other. And very few people talk about this, but a lot of the science, a lot of the activism, a lot of the beginning of the hormone activists and advocates really started with HIV. And I do have to remind people that that disease has actually benefited the world in general by the work many of us have to do, not only in this area, but for instance, HIV activists pushed the FDA to approve drugs a lot faster for people that needed them. It's called fast tracking. We were the ones that actually pushed for that. So there are many changes that happen because of desperation. And there's nothing better for change in the world than desperation. And there's nothing better than for change in the world that people that have nothing to lose. When people have nothing to lose, that's when true change happens. And luckily, we're not there anymore when it comes to survival for us. But we were there for over 20 years of desperation. So a lot of that really benefited us. And to the point is that things got so much better in HIV after, we did get rid of a few of those drugs that were disfiguring us. And then I started getting emails from HIV negative, from heterosexual guys, a lot of the people with gay men, telling me, Nelson, do you only help people with HIV? Do I have to be positive for you to help me out? And I kept getting those emails back and forth. It's like, and I knew there was something that was calling me to move on, to transition from the world of HIV into general men's health. And that's where I am now. I've been doing so for maybe 12 years, where I'm basically educating men and some physicians on mostly the use of testosterone replacement and exercise nutrition supplementation. And I do talk a lot about anabolic steroid use in clinical settings for diseases that are wasting. I do not obviously promote the anabolic use for bodybuilding because it is still illegal in the United States and in the world, most countries, to do so, even though, to be honest with you, the risks are overblown, especially if you know how to manage some of the side effects, which we can talk about that now, because testosterone is an anabolic steroid. Even if you use it at lower doses for replacement purposes, it has the same side effects as anabolic steroids. So if we have a doctor that knows how to manage testosterone replacement, that doctor also knows how to manage anabolic steroid use. And a lot of men are in the closet. We're talking everybody about their use of anabolic steroids. Why? Because of the stigma, because judgment, because they're afraid legally, and most of it. And the bullshit that goes on from some other parts of the world saying that's cheating. We're cheating death and we're cheating looking pretty sickly. But what I'm trying to say is that I do not believe they should be illegal. A woman can get a breast implant. Anybody can get facial surgery, which is higher risk. Plastic surgery has higher risk than doing anabolics. Do I think everybody should do them? Of course not. I think a lot of people are having body image issues, straight and gay, not only gay men. So that's a double-edged sword there. So, but I'm going to stop here because I can keep going forever.
Well, there's a lot to absorb there, and just backtracking a little, the story with the HIV that is intense. It's hard for me to fathom. So you're in your mid-20s, you're an immigrant. How about your English at the time? Was it broken or fluent?
as bad as it is now. I never was able to get rid of the accent. But hey, the fact I told people in my lectures, like, I have a thick accent. It gets worse when I speak, and you have to listen to it because I have a message for you. So, anyways.
No, you speak really well now. I just can't imagine how much more difficult that would have been being an immigrant, 2 years in the country, then bang, get diagnosed with HIV. Is it fair to say then, because what I'm listening and gathering from you, is it fair to say that you, Nelson Vergel, were pivotal in the life expectancy for everyone that had HIV at the time? Pivotal.
That's, I mean, I hate to say that because it sounds so conceited. No, if hadn't been me, probably somebody else would have done it. Michael Moody would have probably kept doing it. Um, he would have probably pushed the envelope. But I was actually positive and suffering, of it. So it was easier for me to speak from my own experience. So yeah, I think I probably helped some people gain a few years to push their life expectancy to 1996, 7. Really, that's the limit. That's where, if you made it to 96, 97, you had a good chance to survive. So, like, I had to bury 3 of my partners. I had 3 boyfriends that died before 97.
No.
And and 2 of them didn't want to listen to me, so they died in bones, and 1 did listen to me, but he eventually died of, as I said, something else I got. So, what I was gonna say, it was intense. I don't think in the history of the world, except war, famine, I'm sure the concentration camps in 100 times worse. But to have thousands of young men and women be told that your days were limited, and not only that, that you couldn't tell anybody about what you had, because many of my friends were kicked out of their families, um, their jobs. We were like we were like toxic. We were like radioactive. People didn't want to be in the same rooms with us. So we became like, sometimes watch these mutant movies of mutants and how we felt like mutants.
Yeah.
And we had our own underground world where we would meet to help each other, and there was no internet. So we had to network in very different ways. But I, I don't know of any other time in history where um, young people without a war. I'm not talking about war. When young people are determined to work together, and we did. That's why the gay rights movement became so strong, because it really came from that energy that we all created out of desperation. And now, obviously, we're doing a lot better, not only in HIV, but gay rights. We're moving forward. And a lot of that started from all that pain and death, funerals every weekend, and horrible things. I mean, horrible. I mean, you would go to the store, the grocery store, and half of the guys here in this area, which is gay area in Houston, were wasting and walking away. It wasn't like zombies. It was a horrible, horrible time. But at the same time, uh, something good came out of it, I think.
Yeah. Wow. It's, I watched a movie, one of my favorite movies, the Dallas Buyers Club. You're probably aware of it.
Yeah.
And within this movie, they trial a number of other drugs that end up just as deadly as the HIV itself. Did you ever experiment with drugs that also nearly landed you in deep water along your way?
Yeah, that's a good question. Actually, I was saved by placebo. I should write an article about that. I joined because I was aggressive. I was like, I wanted whatever it is out there. So in 88 or so, we started hearing about ACT. ACT was this drug that is a cancer drug that has some HIV controlling properties, blah, blah, blah. So there was a big study all over the country um, that was for enrolling patients. So I did, and my friends and my partner back then, we enrolled because, I mean, we may survive with ACT. And 2 years into the study, 3 years, I'm told, because they unblinded it, I'm told that I'm on placebo, not on the actual treatment. And I was shocked and I was saddened, but I was like, oh my God, I've been taking a sugar pill for 3 years. I'm not going to survive. And my partner found out that he was on treatment. And then a year after that, we found out that ACT was actually toxic and killing people faster. So he ended up getting sick within a year or so and dying. And I didn't,
Oh my
because
God.
because I was on placebo. I was on a sugar pill. That's why, as I said, there's some things in life, they're luck. And something that I look back then, I was like, I cried that day. Oh my God, I'm on placebo. Oh, so I'm not going to survive. And the guys that were on ACT died faster. So yes, that's one of the drugs that the Dallas Buyers Club mentions. We created at the same time a Houston Buyers Club that did the same thing. So these buyers clubs spread around the country. The reason that the Dallas Buyers Club got picked for Hollywood for a movie is because it was run by a quote unquote heterosexual man that really did not admit he was bisexual. I knew him, but that is the only reason. And and I'm not saying he did not do a great job, but we were doing the buyers clubs everywhere. LA had a buyers club, Houston had a buyers club at the same time. And we would communicate by mail. We would send each other notes by mail because there was no internet about what is a new thing to import from Israel. We were importing from Africa, from South America, herbs from China. I mean, you name it. We were experimenting. We were biohacking. All this hacking thing that.
Yeah.
Okay, no, we were really biohacking back then
Yeah.
because we had no other alternatives. We were having parties where we had enemas with this Chinese cucumber that you had to boil in a tea because it was supposed to increase your immune system. I mean, there was this butter from Israel that we would eat. There was this stuff that they use for photo processing, and it burns your skin. That enhances your immune function. So I had burns everywhere. I was eating this butter thing everywhere and doing enemas with this this Chinese herb. So it was
Wow.
really, somebody needs to do a movie about that. That is where
Yes.
this story really is. And but anyways, so it's very intense. It's very intense. It's a movie kind of, and they did one thing, and they did the Philadelphia, whatever it's called. That was pretty sad. I don't like watching movies from that time, even the Buyers Club. But somebody could make a movie about all the crazy stuff we did. Actually tried, because some of them actually could be revisited because they did have some benefits. It's just that our immune system was dying so fast that nothing really worked unless and not one single drug works, by the way. We had to combine 3 drugs to make HIV undetectable, go into dormancy. So we haven't found one single drug, although there is a cure. Somebody was cured, a friend of mine, 13 years ago, but we haven't
Cured.
really. Yeah, cured. He's cured because it's a very specific case that cannot be replicated because of the risks. He had cancer, he had lymphoma, and he had failed 2 rounds of chemo. So they were doing, this doctor in Germany, he's American, but he was in Germany, decided to try this new thing where because we found out eventually that 1% to 2% of the Northern European population had mutations in their T cells, in their immune cells, that that made them, resistant to HIV. They could not get infected. Nobody knows where that mutation comes from. They think is survivors of the that bubonic plague, and so all the researchers were looking for those people, Germany, Norway, Sweden, for those people that had the mutation, and they found a few of them, and not only they have to find somebody that had mutations, but somebody that was compatible, their immune system was compatible to Timothy Brown, his name. So they did find this guy, and the guy actually agreed to donate his immune system, which basically they pulled out some of his stem cells and infused them on Timothy after he went through another round of chemo. And this guy's a donor's immune system took over, and Timothy really now is resistant to HIV. He cannot get infected. So that happened 30 years ago. And they tried doing that again in like 7 people, and they all died. Timothy was just like a miracle. He survived because it's not easy to do that, what he went through. So we haven't been able to have another cure, although there's a guy already in London that we presume he's cured. And there are reports coming this year that 3 more people are going to be cured with this procedure. Only for those that have cancer, they have failed chemotherapy, and they're willing to take that risk. So it is a very expensive cure. It's a very risky cure, but it's giving us a lot of ideas on what's possible. To scale up something that is less risky and less expensive, obviously. And we're getting there. I would say I wouldn't be surprised if in 15 years or less we do have a cure. And we have another wonderful thing coming. I mean, very soon this year we have a great thing coming up. We have an injection, actually, that you can get an injection every 3 months and get prevention. Like you are basically cannot get infected with HIV. And for treatment for the guys that are really positive like me, that same injection with another drug injected every month will help us survive without taking pills. So nobody talks about that, but we are going through an explosion of wonderful things happening. I mean, back in the days when I started taking my meds, I used to take meds 4 times a day, probably over 30 pills a day. And now we have most people that are infected now take 1 pill a day. Not me, because I have multi-drug resistance. I'm an advanced case, they call it. But anyways, now we're going to have an injection every month. No orals, no pills. And for those that want to prevent HIV, even if they don't want to use a condom, it's going to be an injection every 3 months. So it's an amazing thing. And that's happening soon this year.
That
And
is amazing.
in the States, because obviously everything happens in the States, because here's where they charge the most money. Here's where research happens, because there's the most money to be made. And then obviously other countries like, Canada, Australia, Europe, they obviously eventually get it approved to at a much better price. And then hopefully the world starts picking it up, because, even now, around 30% of people with HIV in the world, and there's basically around 40 million of us are not getting treated because their countries, like my country, Venezuela, people are dying because the government completely bankrupted the country and there are no medications. So there are many countries like in Asia too, where people don't have access. So we're in 2019 where things have improved dramatically in the rich countries, and yet don't get me started when it comes to world politics. So there's a lot going on, but there's a lot of good. I concentrate on the good, and the good is that a lot of us don't have to worry about this horrible thing. We do have complications. Aging with HIV brings its challenges, but we're in heaven compared to the hell we used to be in. But anyway, switching back, because I really want to talk about men's health.
Yes.
Is the fact that I wanted to move on. I think there are only 1.5, 1.4 million HIV positive people in the United States, and I knew that my message could help every man and hopefully women, because women also need testosterone. So that's what's been happening in the past few years. I created a website called ExcelMale.com, and it's pretty popular. I have some huge Facebook groups, as you well know. And I also created a company called DiscountedLabs.com, which provides low-cost blood testing for anybody that wants to buy without a doctor's visit. So the patients can actually self-monitor their blood levels of different things, from cholesterol to hormones to everything. So we do have a few things in the United States that are we have more access, because there is a parallel system where you have insurance, and obviously insurance here is a mess, as you guys all know, all over the world. But there's also a cash basis kind of system where if you have cash to pay for certain services or products, you can have access to blood testing or compounding pharmacies, and you can get products a lot cheaper through them. So in the United States, access is a lot better. I do have to say that it's a society that discriminates. The middle class, upper middle class, and the rich are in a different world when it comes to healthcare and access to hormones or special products, even stem cells, than the population that doesn't have the means. So but we have a lot. We have a lot in the United States now that we can use and access that no other country has. And I'm not boasting about that. So I think the United States also is the most crazy country to be in for healthcare due to costs, but there is more of a free market when it comes to allowing companies and clinics to do their thing, which obviously can also go very wrong. But I'm very happy to be here because I'm able to teach patients and physicians on how to access different products from compounding pharmacies or lab testing, because there's still a lot of misinformation out there, as you well know, because you do this work like I do too. So
Absolutely, which is where I found you. Let's get a bit of a backstory on how I found you. So, taking me back to when I was a teenager, I was obese, and when I was obese as a teenager, I had pre-pubertal gynecomastia, which I had to get surgically removed later. In Perth, Western Australia, at the time, the surgeons didn't even know what it was. I actually had a liposuction first, twice, which didn't resolve the issue. I was young. I didn't know what was going on. Then the internet started getting more popular at the time. I self-diagnosed myself with what was obviously gynecomastia. You could feel the glands. I finally had the surgery, but from a surgeon that wasn't too privy with the surgery, because it was something that, no one was really getting at the time, and bodybuilding wasn't popular at the time. So it was a rare surgery for him to conduct. I had to have 3 revisions on that. Finally, after 5 surgeries, I corrected the issue. But that had me interested in the world of hormones from a very young age. As I lost all the weight and I got in shape, and then I wanted to bulk up, obviously anabolic steroids were a popular choice. But upon researching, again, gynecomastia as a potential side effect. So I went, which a lot of people do, as you know, the opposite way, abusing aromatase inhibitors. And that would send me to the worst experience of my life, hands down. I know you've spoke to many people that have had similar experiences, but I essentially tanked my estrogen. Okay, so I got on anabolic steroids. I didn't quite like what it was doing to me in terms of my face would get puffy. I had some sleep apnea issues. I just got too big, essentially. But when I went back to the TRT dose, which was working for me really well, because again, I had low testosterone as well, for whatever reason or reasons, I was on TRT and taking 0.5 milligram of Rumidex per day from my doctor's prescription. I won't name him. His license has been revoked now anyway. But then one day, I'll never forget waking up. And I had no idea what depression and anxiety really meant at the time. I didn't really understand what people meant when they spoke about it. I thought, oh yeah, you're sad. Oh yeah, you're scared. But no. I woke up this one day. I was driving to the gym. I'll never forget it. Okay. Everything looked dark. My heart started racing. I was like, well, what's going on here? And I went to the gym and I got on the treadmill, and there was a girl that I knew at the gym, and she was speaking right through me. It was as if I was completely disconnected. I had, at the time, which I didn't know, was a panic attack, completely shut off, couldn't speak, nothing. Don't even know how I drove home safely. And then for a period of 16 weeks, I went from this anxiety to this severe depression that had me putting a deadline on my suicide date. No word of lie. That bad. And it was objective that it was the low estrogen. I got it tested. Then, thanks to you and your forum, getting the sensitive assay of the estradiol was the only accurate way, because at the time we had the regular immunoassay, and we still do. You have to specify for the sensitive assay in Australia. and it cost a lot of money. Fortunately for me, I was okay financially. Otherwise, it would have been a bit of a pickle. My estradiol was 5 pmol a liter. So in terms of the United States lab units, that would be 2 pg, just nothing. And I figured out quite quickly that there could be side effects from having really low estradiol, thanks to your forum. And the moment I stopped the aromatase inhibitors and I increased the dose of testosterone, because I figured more testosterone, faster aromatization, estradiol would come back quicker, which, mind you, took time. It was interesting how 300 milligrams per week of testosterone, which far exceeded my TRT dose, still took months for my estradiol to get back to where it was. That pretty much eradicated, for me at least, the Arimidex rebound effect, because I did not experience that at all. But it was 2 weeks after stopping the aromatase inhibitor, these symptoms started to go away. I'll just quickly add to that. I had other symptoms. It wasn't so subjective. I couldn't type a sentence without 10 words forgetting what I had wrote. I had to refer back. My memory started getting impaired. I had these brain zaps where I'd be speaking and my head I was going insane. I even had a symptom, which I later found out from a psychologist friend of mine, called depersonalization. I felt like I was in a video game. I didn't feel real a lot of the time. It's really hard to describe, but it was the most horrible symptom to get up and I'd feel, am I awake? Am I dreaming? Am I here? And then all of the other anhedonic experiences. Music doesn't sound good. Food doesn't taste good. I'm not horny. The sore joints, all of the classical low E2 sides. So one of the main reasons I reached out to you is because I have you to thank to save my life. At the time, there was demonization of estrogen everywhere on the internet. So as good as the internet can be, as you know, if it goes the wrong way, then the same thing can happen. And if it wasn't for finding you, I don't know what I would have done. I would have kept taking that Arimidex out of fear of getting that gynecomastia, because that affected me so hard psychologically when I was a young teen, you know?
Well, thank you for saying that. Yeah, it's one of the biggest sources of traffic are the keywords crashed estrogen or crashed estradiol to my site. And yeah, I think I created the first video about it because I read the papers back, maybe 8 years ago. And I said, wait a minute. I mean, these papers are telling us that estrogen is important for cognitive function, for mood, for sex drive, even for body composition. It actually, people thought more estrogen, more fat. And the fact is, it's a compensation effect from the body. And 0.3% to 0.4% of testosterone is aromatized on purpose by evolution to estradiol for a reason. I mean, testosterone without estradiol, testosterone without DHT, two of the downstream metabolites, is nothing. It needs those two other pieces of the puzzle to be enhanced. Estradiol enhances the effect on cognitive, and on lean mass, on lipids. Zero estradiol means your cholesterol is going to go up. That's why women live longer than men. You know, cardiovascularly, they have benefits. And the whole thing, and Life Extension Foundation, a few magazines were writing these horrible things from studies that were done really poorly, a lot of animal data too, where they didn't control for testosterone. These are men, most of these studies had men with low testosterone that had high estradiol. So nobody was talking about the testosterone to estradiol ratio, or the fact is they were estrogen dominant. But really, if you have good levels of testosterone, having good levels of estrogen are very important. And having very low levels of estrogen while you're having high, basically you don't feel the effects of testosterone. You were depressed and you were on testosterone. You were feeling like crap and you were on high doses of testosterone. So believe it or not, in 2019, I'm tired. I still have to repeat that message daily. Well, I'm really not doing it as much because I'm really tired of it. Yeah. I mean, and there were people like you. There were a lot of young activists, advocates. I call you an advocate. You really you really got online and started also preaching the message. And I just wanted more people to get it. And still, you see it online daily. I have videos, I have articles, I have reviews of papers that I've done online, and nothing reaches anybody. I say it reaches you, it's reached a few people, but I have to say, and I think it has to do more with perception. If we had called estradiols something like testradiol with a T, we would not be thinking about it. It's just the fact that we equate female to weaker, to having a menopause, to having PMS. So we, in a way, and this is, I'm going to get hate mail for this. In a way, there's a hatred towards the feminine that is implied in the word, you have too much estrogen. Or like a woman, if a woman is told you have too much testosterone, it's also a demeaning thing to say, okay?
Mm-hmm.
In fact, women have testosterone and estrogen, men have testosterone and estrogen. We all have yin and yang, we all have the female and the male, because evolution created that. Evolution put estrogen for a reason in our bodies. We need it for bone density. We cannot have strong bones without estrogen. We cannot have cognitive. You were losing your cognitive ability. Sensitivity, this is obviously anecdotal. There's no data on this, but the guys are telling me that when they crush estradiol, their penis feels numb. I have no data to show. I have tried to find papers, obviously, they're not. So there are many things that guys are exploring now. They're actually talking to each other. But oh my God, I would say ExcelMale, unfortunately, is my side, but people think that we are anti-estradiol. There are doctors that have gone online to bash me for some reason, bash ExcelMale, when in fact is I've been preaching this message before they. So I think it's a number one misconception, the number one cause for unnecessary suffering. A lot of clinics are prescribing high doses of anastrozole where they shouldn't, and it's picking up slowly. I think I see many clinics already walking away from that, but it's still there. And to be honest with you, I'm repeating the same thing every day. It's hard, especially when you have a lot going on. It's very hard. So I'm really relying on people like you, and a lot of guys are like you. You're smart. You know how to read data. You know that because people are repeating certain things doesn't mean they're true. They're pro science out there. But it's frustrating because after 8 years of my first videos and posts on the subject, we're still having problems. I mean, crash estradiol. What happened to you? Although I've never heard somebody with that, because obviously I haven't talked to everybody, but with the severe symptoms, it's happening every day by guys like you, not only in the States, obviously in Australia. In India, I get emails from India, from the Middle East, from Europe too, even without much access there. And the internet, like you said, the internet could be a lifesaver, but it could also spread really fake news or fake data. So as we all know, we are paying the price for that right now.
Absolutely. I emailed Dr. Michael Scally. I still call him Dr. Michael Scally anyway. He declined the offer to have this podcast with me, not because of myself, but because of the state that the scene was in. He's pretty bittered by a lot of it, as you probably know. And speaking of Dr. Michael Scally, you two have some aligned theories and thoughts about how things are going, but also especially on the topic of LH and HCG, which I wanted to discuss with you because I'm about to undergo HCG therapy myself for fertility, but I'm also going to be really cognizant of anything else that I experience, the subjective effects that you speak about, which we'll get into. So Dr. Michael Scally's stance is that there are no extra gonadal benefits of HCG. It's, he's very black and white. You know this. If he doesn't,
I love him, but we disagree.
Yeah, he's very black and white. Which you need that person in the space to kind of to keep it real, so to speak, when people go too far down the anecdote rate. But also, it's pretty hard to ignore thousands of anecdotal reports from your forum and others that experience these other benefits to HCG other than testicular fullness and fertility. Can you speak about those?
Yeah, let's talk about that. Definitely. So probably one of number 2 or 3 keyword in my traffic, in my analytics, because I do have videos on HCG. HCG, human chorionic gonadotropin is a very interesting molecule. It's closely related to LH, luteinizing hormone, which is one of the signals that the pituitary gland sends to the testicles and ovaries to jumpstart production of, testosterone, FSH, testosterone, sperm, and all that. And when we do testosterone replacement, LH and FSH are shut down by a feedback mechanism, completely shut down. And our testicles start atrophying in the lady cells, not because they're dying, but they're losing volume because they're dormant without the LH coming through from the pituitary gland, because we're adding testosterone to the outside world, our bodies. In HCG, we have emerging data that is actually building up. Before, even let's say 5 years ago, if you were on testosterone replacement and you wanted to have a child, the doctor would will tell you to stop testosterone. And because, testosterone decreases fertility dramatically, sperm count and all that. And they would put you on either clomiphene, which is Clomid, or HCG and clomiphene and different things. Fertility doctors have different protocols, FSH, LH. But the data started coming through in Houston at Baylor College. Houston I'm biased because I'm here. I live in Houston, but it's also becoming kind of a mecca of research from Baylor School of Medicine. Dr. Lipschultz, Larry Lipschultz, a friend of mine, and very progressive urologist that has a rotation of around 17 to 20 new fellows, doctors that come through his practice because he's a professor. So he's training all these new young doctors coming through. And he's always having these new young doctors do special studies, research. And he did a research study combining testosterone with HCG to see what happened to sperm count. And yeah, he found a way that, protocol 500 IUs every other day, along with testosterone, either injections or gels, actually was able to work in 66%, two-thirds of the men, to improve their sperm counts for fertility. That's all he looked at. He didn't look at any other variables. I'm trying to convince him to look at other things in the next study. So that is a small study, but it's picking up steam everywhere. And then obviously now HCG is replacing LH in your body. And there's theories. I mean, a lot of people are fighting back and forth, but that LH has receptors everywhere in the brain and everywhere else. And they're mood elevating and also libido elevating effects of HCG. I'm biased. I have very strong biases. I've been on testosterone for, I don't know, 3-4 years. I started in the early 90s, like 91, 92, I forget. And it's 2019, I'm 60 now. And I've been on testosterone ever since. And I was on testosterone without HCG for, I don't know, at least the last, maybe the first 20 years. And yeah, I mean, it worked to keep my lean body mass and all that. But after a while, as you get older and just the sex drive starts decreasing, and I was actually reaching a plateau. So I brought in the HCG and my sex drive definitely picked up really fast. So much so that if I forget to use it, my sex drive drops dramatically. Like I don't even think about sex or even masturbation or anything. I concentrate on work, which is not too bad. It's not bad to do that once in a while. It takes you away from wasting too much time. But anyways, so I was very interested in HCG. I hate it or love it. You either love or hate. It's not the hating. Let me tell you about the hating. The hating is it enhances the side effects of testosterone, meaning it increases red blood cells, which is another topic that you probably talked about a lot before, and viscosity of the blood, hematocrit, and it can increase water retention. There's some guys
Mm-hmm.
really hold water. It can, some guys think they feel moody on HCG, but they're the minority. I would say on ExcelMale, maybe 30% of guys complain about water retention and everything else. And these obviously dose related. But a lot of guys do, they swear by it. They say, Nelson, you're right. I do feel more horny and even I'm more up. So obviously, to be honest with you, nobody has proven, either one, nowhere has proven that HCG increases sex drive. So I'm trying to convince the guys at Baylor to do another study and actually not only look at sperm count, look at sex drive. And nobody definitely has proven that there's mood enhancing effects. So Dr. Scali is right. Dr. Scali is right to feel the way he feels because he's a academic guy. He actually believes in data. So am I. But I'm a patient and I'm biased because it works for me. I'm aware. I'm aware that it's not for everybody. Well, in Dr. Lipschul's study, 33% did not respond. 33% of men. So what he found, he correlated older men that were on testosterone the longest time, were the ones that did that is well on sperm count. So, but the younger men that were not on testosterone as long, did better. So STG doesn't work for everybody. Not everybody has to do HCG. Some men tell me, my testicles are fine. My testicles shrunk. I mean, it's a long use of testosterone anabolics. And yeah, I wanted my testicles back. That is a big black and white. I mean, in a week or 2 weeks, that's happening. There's no placebo effect. It's there or not there. And so I tell people, if that's not happening, either the dose is too low or it's not for you. But it happens. So, and the fertility stuff, obviously not looking to have a child. So I'm not doing it for that. I'm doing it for sex drive. And I'm doing it also because I do feel there's a mood enhancing effect. So it enhances the androgenic effects of testosterone, but nobody has really proven in data whether or not it does so beyond sperm count.
It's going to be difficult to get that data, being that mood and libido are subjective. And I mean, if anyone could solve those two things in the world, they'd be a trillionaire, right? I mean, it's that they're complicated symptoms.
Yeah.
But
not only that, it's a generic too. So, there's no patent. Yeah. So
that's right, for sure. I mean, we can talk about that, but absolutely, if something that cheap can be that effective, it's not going to spread. Just like how I feel with a lot of these peptides, which we can, again, also go down, the TB500 and the BPC157. In my little circle, I've seen some amazing objective experiences of people healing long-term injuries that they've had for nearly a decade on these two peptides, or the combination of these two peptides. So I'm not foreign to understanding that there are some amazing drugs already out there that just are not going to get the exposure that they need because there's no profit. Right?
Yeah, right. So, I mean, the peptide world is a different world too. I mean, we do have, one peptide approved here, sermorelin in the States, but it's a growth hormone releasing hormones and girdling analogs. They're very interesting because they're not like growth hormone. They enhance your own growth hormone production obviously with lower side effects. And a lot of people are buying them online, but some of them are not FDA approved and they probably will never be. And they can, but people are talking about them, especially for healing of joint injuries or things of that nature. So there's a lot of, I have a whole section on peptides on ExcelMale where I even talk about ipamorelin, the growth hormone releasing hormone 216, ibutamorin, which is probably one of a few oral growth hormone enhancers too. So there are bunches. And the being HIV positive in the 90s and the 80s really opened my eyes up to what are we not using that is already out there? Where are we not using just because people have stigma about it. Or so I'm always exploring too. I'm not a biohacker at all. I don't even like that term. But I love experimenting. Yeah, you have to be very careful sometimes, especially if you're suppressed like me. You'll be trying shit that you don't know where you're getting it from, injecting into your body stuff that you don't know who made it or whether or not they did it, in sterile conditions. So I do tend to have a strong bias for large compounding pharmacies here in the States, like Empower Pharmacy, where they have, a lot of regulations and a lot of, restrictions on they have to have a sterile problem. So that's the thing about that I'm afraid of, that a lot of people are injecting stuff that they're getting from the internet, not knowing whether or not it's a real thing or if there are any you know any contaminants in it. So, but there is always a risk to everything, right? Especially if you're trying new things. I mean,
Absolutely. And
so yeah.
at
So
29, I've definitely gone down the experimentation route myself. And believe it or not, despite experimenting with so many drugs, I only take testosterone now. I've tried, I know you've had podcasts on metformin, human growth hormone, a lot of these other novel adjuncts or ancillaries to a HRT protocol. For me personally, I seem to be side effect sensitive. Metformin, horrible gastrointestinal issues, and some other symptoms with fatigue. Fatigue is. I know you speak about fatigue, which I'd also love to go down. It's one that plagues me whenever I diverge from the program. No matter what I'm doing, it just feels like now I'm in a good place where I try not to mess with it too much. HEG, I think, is going to be pretty harmless. I'm going to be doing it regardless for fertility. But aside from that, I I don't take anything. I've had my best results for any of my other issues, which we won't go into my other issues today. The podcast is about you, was just via a dietary modality. Let's speak about that, actually. I mean, there's so many things that me and you could speak about, so many different drugs and therapies. We can talk about your forum, your business, but I need to kind of streamline this right now because we're just going to go on so many different tangents. You and me spoke about IBS at one point. This is definitely a question I wanted to ask you because it's close to my heart too.
mine
And
too.
yeah, it's a debilitating disease in a way. Even though it isn't life threatening, it makes you very uncomfortable for 24 hours of your day. Socially, just yourself, just those feelings. It's a horrible thing to have. I even read a research paper. It's more debilitating than people with, stage XYZ heart issues because just the social implications of having the IBS, because it's there with you constantly when you have a flare. For me, I'm not going to say it's a 100% cure because it's hard to comply with. I found this crazy diet after trying that many medications and diets, you probably know, called the carnivore diet. And the carnivore diet is essentially, for me at least, meat, liver, bone meal, and some mineral water. And that's it. And for the first time, I didn't have any symptoms. And I also found some other benefits would come from that, improve energy, mood. Obviously there's some autoimmunity going on with me. I think a lot of people in the IBS community, there's some sort of autoimmunity going on. I really do suspect that. But yeah, that was my kind of fix. How are you with your IBS at the moment? And what are you doing?
Yeah, I feel better. I don't know why. Sometimes it comes and goes. Metformin got me really excited because it worked opposite to what it did for you. It actually decreased my, IBS symptoms, my bloating and all the. When you're bloated or you feel kind of like your stomach, your gut is ruling you. It even rules your mood. It makes you tired. Having like pain or diarrhea or constipation, or I've had mostly IBS D, which is diarrhea. There's IBS, irritable bowel syndrome C, or irritable bowel syndrome mixed, which I think I have Yes, I was diagnosed. And, obviously I'm immune suppressed. So yes, people with immune dysfunction tend to have more IBS. And, people forget that 80% of the immune system is in your gut. Our CD4 cells in the lymphatic issue, in the mucosa of the intestinal walls. Most of our immune system is there. So when you have an immune challenge, or some people develop IBS after they've been sick with some weird bug, some people are born that way, but some people are really, after they've had this weird illness, they constantly have IBS. But anyways, so I tried diets. I do agree. I agree 100% with you that if you cut out all the sugars or the carbs, just meats, I do better. When I eat meat, I do better. For me, it's being a compliance issue, because to stay on the carnivore, and by the way, you're like the third person, because I coach people online sometimes, and you're like the third person that said that. Not only they feel better, but their gut is better and their energy is better. Some guy got off Adderall. He was having to take Adderall because he had no energy. He's a IT programmer. And so I get it. I'm actually jealous because I want to do it too. And I asked him, like I would ask you, how you actually don't get bored eating the same stuff like meats every day, eggs. I think eggs you can eat, right? Is there anything but like the carbs? And you do eat some vegetables that are low glycemic, right? No,
None, no
nothing.
vegetables. I'm
And you
highly
don't have no.
reactive to plants.
Okay, so and you feel better. So it's just that I don't know. I guess, like somebody, I tell people, how bad do you want it? How bad do you want health? How bad do you want to get better? How bad? How much are you willing to do? I haven't gone that path. I'm still eating carbs here and there, and obviously like yogurt and nuts, and I eat meats and all that. And yeah, I'm in Texas. I could do a beautiful carnivore diet here. We have the best
Yeah.
meat. But I haven't tried it. But I think I'm gonna do it because, like you said, it rules your life. For me, IBS, when I have the flares, I'm tired. I get tired. I get low mood. I kind of don't want to go out, like you say, don't want to socialize, because really, I mean, I don't want to put on a shirt because I'm bloated.
Yeah.
It's almost like these many things we can talk on forever. And there are a lot of people suffering from that, not only women, men too. And it has nothing to do with hormones. We was always estrogen, so you're feeling more bloated. No, it's an autoimmune and an inflammatory state, um, severe sensitivities to different foods, on some food sensitivities that really showed that, avoiding milk products, avoiding obviously sugars, and even fats, depending on the good fats and all that. But I haven't. So I will, and because it worked for you and it worked for the fatigue. Fatigue rules my life. I mean, I'm a very productive person, but I struggle. And struggle. I have to take naps here and there. My sleep is very light. So, and I'm 60, obviously, and I've been tired for many years. It was one of the driving forces for doing the work I do. Because if it wasn't for hormones, God, I would probably, I don't know, either be dead or very unproductive. I have 2 books, several sites. I do good work. But fatigue, I know that I'm 60, but I know that my mom at 80 is more active and has less fatigue than me. So, and that is all related to gut inflammation. There is this leaky gut that people say, oh, it's bullshit. No, it's not bullshit. A lot of the waste product that we have, basically, we're separated from a sewer by a very thin layer of cells. We have a sewer inside of us. A sewer, sometimes it has toxic stuff, so sometimes it has good bacteria, sometimes it has very bad bacteria that leaks, that can have leakage to our bloodstream and create inflammation. And we have studied that a lot in HIV, and it's true. There's no bullshit. And a lot of people with IBS have a lot of leaky gut issues. So, and if you're immune suppressed, more. So what I'm trying to get at is there's no cure for that. There are actually some treatments that make symptoms better. I think diet is the way to go. I think you're not the only one that has gone completely carnivore and doing better. I haven't tried it, but I'm definitely willing to. I just want you to, maybe you can do that for the world and for me. Send me your routine, your whole week, do you eat the same thing? Do you kind of like steaks are grilled one day and then you eat ground beef another day? How do you do it?
It's so interesting. And obviously, as a food lover, I try and tell people that anyone that's considering the carnivore diet, I can tell you more than anyone, I am the food guy. So if people worry about compliance, absolutely, that's still an issue for me. However, remarkably, because obviously the symptoms get that bad, I don't do it as much. Probably once a week now, I'll have a meal, and sometimes once a week is enough for me to have a flare. If it's the wrong food or the wrong time in my body, I'll be sick until the next week. So I have to be very careful that, as you know, IBS starts gradually and it can get more severe. And for me, it went from having it every few months on, off, then only if I ate certain foods, it'd be gone the next day. And now, one single meal, my immune system can have a reaction for a week or two. So it isn't really worth cheating anymore. I've considered going 365, which I think is eventually going to happen. I'm 29 now, and if things continue, it's going to get to a point where, for me, it gets kind of dangerous. I have IBS-C, and if I have these flares, I will not go to the toilet. Even with the medications, I have to take some pretty severe meds, which horrible symptoms. The pain, I'm talking take a knee on the floor pain when I do have to go. So I don't want to go through that too often, which is clearly damaging. However, you definitely have to love steak, first of all. So I love meat and always did love meat. Even, there you go, that's the first step. I mean, people that don't love meat, I'm like, I don't know how to help you, because you got to love it, right? Here's the interesting thing. I started the carnivore diet probably 2 years ago, just slowly, also with a bit of vegetables, because I thought, I'm going to die if I don't have vegetables, right? Until I met a brilliant man, Dr. Paul Saladino, who deconstructed all of the dogma behind vegetables. And he really had me questioning things once again. And I got to admit, for someone like me that questions things quite often, I never questioned vegetables. I never questioned phytonutrients, antioxidants, all of these things until I, dove really deep. And I was like, hold on a second. The same thing is going on here. Epidemiology, correlation type studies. This is all nonsense. We don't know. We don't know that they're bad, but we can't say for sure that vegetables are critical in a human diet. And then he got me thinking about organ meats and how I didn't even know there's vitamin C in organ meats, all the B vitamins, all the fat soluble vitamins, that had me thinking, holy crap, we can get a complete diet out of a nose to tail carnivore diet. I'm not sure about simply eating ribeyes, which a lot of people do as well, but I eat a nose to tail. So I am not deficient, and I've had my blood work, not deficient of any serum vitamins, minerals. It's weird. My LDL and HDL are great. Triglycerides really low, even though some people do tend to get elevated LDL. However, there's a dude, I don't know if you've heard of him, Dave Feldman. He talks about the context between someone on a ketogenic diet versus someone on a conventional diet. I won't get into that, but he has some pretty compelling arguments. And just everything just looked good on paper. However, as you know, I'm a human. So every now and then, like this weekend, I was out with someone enjoying a good time, and, I slipped. I went and had a pizza and had some ice cream. But it's amazing. And I haven't met one person in the carnivore community. This is the most amazing thing. I know it's all anecdote, but I have yet to meet one person, and people close to me as well, that haven't reported back to me with, wow, bro, this issue healed, this happened. It's remarkable. And it's not, and I don't think it's that meat heals. It's simply the elimination of things that are affecting us when we have that leaky gut or intestinal permeability, which is well established now in the research field. Intestinal permeability is absolutely a thing. I know it started out as a quacky myth, but it's a real thing, as you know.
Yeah, we have good data.
Yeah, great data. So what I would suggest is this, and it's getting to my point now. Try it for a week, and something interesting happens. something happens to your palate. I don't know what it is. Even when I broke, it was more a trigger that I was enjoying time with a girl and I was there with her socially. It wasn't that I was craving food like I usually would get. I get ravenous at night when I'm eating a conventional diet. I'm talking, it's a legitimate addiction. You're knowingly eating something that is, especially with us, with our knowledge bases. I know it's going to give me IBS. I know it's going to make me more prone to cancer. I know it's going to do this, but I still eat that 3 minutes of mouth pleasure. Isn't it 3 to 5 minutes of mouth pleasure for all of these other side effects that could...
It's a dopamine rush, man. It's a
Yeah.
drug. It's a drug. It's a drug. Food is a drug.
It's a drug. Okay. So this goes away after time. And again, a lot of people experience that. I think the moment you put any carbohydrates in your mouth, this is my theory, even if it's plants, I mean, at the end of the day, they're carbohydrates. It seems to fuel that palate, whether it's happening in the oral microbiome or the gut or both, something's happening. But when you have steak every day, and if you need good steak, I know it sounds absurd, but about $100 per day on my diet, because steak is very expensive in Australia, and to get quality cuts, that's just the way things are. But I just crave steak at my next meal. I'm always craving steak, so you don't get bored. And a lot of people say this. It's something that you just kind of have to try to understand, because I know when I started, I thought I would rather die than not have my sweets or even my sweet potato. And yeah, things definitely do change. So when people ask me, do I think I could stick to this diet for life? My answer is yes. And I think it's going to happen for me really soon, because after that weekend, I get these delayed food reactions where I don't get the IBS straight away the next day. It's the day after, or even the third day. So I might be doing my carnivore diet and then get the flare. And these delayed reactions can, last days, even weeks. So yeah, I'm edging towards being 100% carnivore, and I have no fear that it's going to lead to any ill health effects, because as you know, if you're feeling fatigued, you know that it just ruins everything in life. Everything.
And there's inflammation happening. There's inflammation happening everywhere when you're having IBS. And we have good data in HIV that inflammation, and in non-HIV too, that inflammation decreases lifespan. Inflammation is an activation of the immune system. And a lot of foods cause inflammation, not only for the leaky gut, but foods themselves. So I get it. No, I'm in Texas. Here, meat is not that expensive, as expensive for us, because we have a lot of cattle here. So I should just do it. You're like the third person. I have a client, like I said, coaching client. Completely. I mean, it's the fact that he got off Adderall and his energy level, and he's like doing sport and all that. There's nothing else. I mean, he's on testosterone. That's about it. Like you. He's taking nothing else, not even vitamins, nothing, and it's been over 8 months. So it's not a placebo effect, because people say, "Oh, it's placebo." No, placebo lasts a month. When it comes to gut, probably lasts less than that. Like you said, libido, pain, sex drive, they could have a very strong placebo effect. Things that we take for that, but after a while, placebo wears off. And if it doesn't wear off, it's actually working for you anyways. So you probably know by now if it had been a placebo effect or not. And the thing about IBS-C is that they tell people with IBS-C to eat more fiber.
I know.
More vegetables, right? So it's completely opposite to what you're told.
You ever seen that data? So I went really deep into that data. There was a doctor called Dr. Paul, I forget his name, sorry, but he did a presentation at a conference about fiber, and all he did was present the data that was already there, just like what you did with estrogen. It's there to be found, and Lord and behold, no, there is no clear benefit to fiber in relieving constipation. In fact, the inverse is true oftentimes, and that resonated with me. I immediately got the fiber tub, the psyllium husk, and I poured it down the drain because it was making me worse. It was
causes gas. So more pain actually. Yeah.
Yeah.
I promise you, I'm gonna try as of this week, because it's not hard. Here it's not hard to go carnivore. We have great fajitas, great barbecue.
Yeah. just be mindful with the carnivore diet. A few things. So it needs to be strict, obviously, for a controlled experiment. So sources, they got to go. It's just salt. Don't put any spices on because,
Really?
yeah, I mean, you can react to spices and sauces. At the end of the day, it's not carnivore. I mean, but for
Yeah,
me, if you have a great steak, you don't need the sauce.
that's true.
So it's not necessary. Just make sure that the fat to protein ratio is there. I think there are some people that have problems that have really lean cuts, especially people that are interested in physique enhancement. They'll automatically think about their physique, and you just kind of have to leave that aside because I did that at the beginning, and I was having really lean cuts of steak, and that wasn't as good, especially on my digestion. So try and stick to the fattier cuts. And another game changer for me was including organ meats, but particular liver. So
I
you can
love
get,
liver.
yeah,
Yeah.
as long as you do that, half a kilo per week or something like that, with fatty cuts of ribeye, let's say, you're golden. You're golden.
I'm gonna try it. I'll do anything right now especially for the energy side of things. And my gut is better now, but it's one of those things. It's better for how long? Because it never
Yeah,
really lasts that long. And when it goes south, when it goes bad, and it takes like you, it takes me a while to recover.
yeah,
And it rules my life. It's just I become an antisocial person. Thank God
yeah.
I have a online presence, and I can do this sometimes, even when I'm not feeling like tucking in a shirt because I'm bloated.
Yeah,
So
me
yeah,
too. I actually will thank my IBS for helping me build the businesses that I had today because I was so introverted due to the condition. I built my businesses online. That's how I got into it. It's funny that you get forced into this introverted antisocial space and you create some really good things.
yeah. My last book, I wrote it because I was going crazy after back surgery. I was in bed, and I said I'm gonna lose my mind. So I started writing a book. So, there are things that happen to you. They're horrible or they're bad, but you have to keep saying, and sometimes it makes you produce stuff that I mean, best genius are the best painters in history. So people that are, people are suffering, or you have to make the best out of your situation. Otherwise we, just feel self-pity, and it never really serves anybody, So
Absolutely. It's good
anyways.
that both of us have channeled our negative energy elsewhere. I mean, your story is definitely more extreme than mine. Um, I want to be respectful of your time because we've been going here over 2 hours.
No,
So,
no. Really?
yes.
That long? Nobody's gonna watch this. It's
Oh,
too long.
I think they're going to watch it. I think it was a great chat. It was unscripted and we didn't really address a lot of the things that we were going to, but I thought it was a great chat. I think before
Thank
we
you.
go though, did you enjoy it?
Of course.
Yeah.
Talking to you, you're like an old friend. You live so far away. We've never met face to face, but you've always been so nice, so present, so smart online, and yeah, I mean, yeah. Well, let's do a few, man. I mean, there's so much to talk about.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. And thank you. You're definitely one of my mentors. So
Thank you.
part of this podcast was that I'm not doing it for any real exposure. I'm not one to want to be popular on social media. I'm doing this podcast for obviously the guest. If they want to share it with anyone, that's great. But I'm after my retirement, so after freedom, I call it. Even though I'm not retired, I've started a new business now recently. I just wanted to connect with all of the people that have inspired me and helped me. And then you're one of them, so you're on my list.
Thank you so much. If we help one person, that's good enough.
Yep.
And I know it's not one, it's a lot more than that. But think about it. Somebody changes their life, their health, and their life, even so, because of the work you do. There's no more reason to get up from bed than that. I mean, sometimes when I'm not feeling that great, I remind myself, Nelson, you know, keep doing what you're doing. Things, you're making a difference. So even in the worst of days, and you've had them, we produce and we help, and we get out of our heads, which is the number one thing to do. So
Yes.
thank you so much for having me, and let's have other ones, other topics. Maybe people can suggest topics for us. So
For
thanks
sure.
a lot.
That would be great. I mean, if you're willing, I'm willing anytime.
Sure,
Absolutely.
sure. Anytime. Talking to you is fun. Anyways, you're engaging. So more than happy to.
Awesome. Before we go, What are you doing now? Is there anything that you want to share with the audience, your audience, the wider
Oh
audience?
yeah. Oh yeah, thanks for letting me plug my latest things because you know I do. I'm like you. I'm one of those guys that cannot be idle because I feel I'm wasting my good years.
Mm-hmm.
I'm about to launch a directory, a physician directory, not only in the States but internationally. So I'm gonna need your help for especially for Australia, of doctors that not only treat men but also women with hormone deficiencies. So that's coming. It's hopefully by you know soon. I've been talking about it for a while, but it's we had to do a lot of coding for because we have a questionnaire, a long questionnaire for clinics and doctors to answer, so that patients already know a lot about their treatment options and their clinics. So the research is done upstream, and the clinics don't have to answer all these phone calls. A lot of the answers are there. So there's going to be a directory where people can search doctors in their area that do different things. It's going to take me obviously a long time to build a database. So that's very exciting, and definitely happy about that because we need that in the world, not only for men but for women also. And secondly, I'm probably in a month, less than a month, I'm going to have a free book, ebook that I'm going to be providing called Beyond Testosterone, which is really a summary of what's been happening since my last book called Testosterone: A Man's Guide. What's happening, you know, all the updates, and it's free as long as you register on ExcelMale.com. Obviously, I want something back, which is your membership, so that you can stay ahead, and that should be out soon. So, what I would recommend anybody watching, and this is my blog, obviously, is to go to ExcelMale, ExcelMale.com, ExcelMale, and going to register please. And if you register, you're going to be receiving in a month an email blast with a download. It's a PDF download of a book that I put together. It's not only a booklet, it's actually 100 pages, but most of the book is graphics, because what I've learned through my two books is that people don't want to read anymore. They want graphics.
Yep.
They don't want to read. They don't even, videos are, so it's a graphic book of diagrams and tables of treatments and peptides and testosterone, growth hormone, nutrition, all that in a graphic format. So, and it'll be free because I think, I want to make it available, and hopefully people will follow ExcelMale. So
Well,
that's
you've
coming.
got the right business model. In 2019, and we're talking strictly business here, the whole idea of cold calling people, buy this, buy that, that's obviously, it's done and dusted now. No one likes that. No one likes to be bugged. There's so much offers coming at us everywhere
The
that, we don't,
funnels.
yeah, it's insane. And so what
Yeah.
you do is you provide so much free, valuable content, life-saving content. Like, for example, myself, being life-saved by you, haven't purchased a thing from you. And then, then you create your best work in, say, a book or something else, or you provide services to further help people, like discounted labs. And that's when I say you deserve to be rich, you
Oh,
know?
thank you so much.
So when you do that much good work, I know you're a very modest guy, but I just want to tell you, you deserve to be rich. So
Thank you. And money's, I want a longer life. That's all I want. Healthy, longer life. For me, that thing about money. I want to pay my bills, help my family, but really, it's all about helping. If you didn't come through this world and made a difference, let's say I die tomorrow, you know, I I guess I paid my dues. It's free air. We are all living in this world, and a lot of people are consuming. They put nothing back. They're
mhm,
consuming information, consuming goods, and they never produce. They never leave something behind. When we die, I mean, I'm a gay man without kids. Obviously, I'm not leaving kids. I'm leaving nephews and nieces. But we have to leave legacies. All of us have something to leave for the world. When we're gone, people can say, well, at least he did this. He helped people. He didn't come through this world just to consume or just to bitch about everything. So
yeah.
that's my theory. So, and when you do good work and you have the right attitude and the heart is in it, money comes, and and that's the way it's been with me. So even through my nonprofit work, So people are so concentrated on making money because money equals ego equals worth, and they even call it, what's your net worth? Screw you. What's your net worth? So anyways, I'm sorry, I'm getting into my cheap philosophy again. So,
No, that's great.
thanks for having me.
All right, let's chat again, Nelson.
All right, you take care.
Thank you,
All
mate.
right,
You
bye
too.
bye.
Bye-bye.